This episode of Video Marketing Madness is made possible by Aweber. Aweber is the easy way to do email marketing. Head on over to raythevideoguy.com/Aweber to get started today for as little as $1 for the first month. Got to check it out. And on today's episode, I am super excited because we have the one, the only creator, programmer, coder, whatever other super cool word we want to use, of the free video editor Shotcut. So this is going to be awesome.
He's Ray the video guy, yeah, Ray the video guy. His skill is where it's at, even if he's a little fat. He's filled with video expertise and has so much knowledge that you need. His YouTube ninja tricks can make your marketing so sick. He's Ray the video guy, yeah, Ray the video guy.
It's the radio show about video marketing madness with Ray the Video Guy, and I'm Steve Sleeper. Got a question for Ray? Go to raythevideoguy.com/ask, A-S-K. Leave your question. If he answers it, you'll win all kinds of great video marketing stuff. We didn't get any questions this week, so leave some, will you? Because we like having those on the end of the show. And then Facebook page is Video Marketing Madness. Twitter, it's Video MKT Madness. Plenty of useful tips posted on a daily basis. And now you know him, you love him. Here he is, Ray the Video Guy.
Yes, indeed. Another excellent week. And like I said at the top of the show, I am really excited for this. Dan, you are with us already. Say hi to everybody for us.
Hello, everyone. Video Marketing Madness.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, I'm excited about this because and I talked to you a little bit about this off the air. For the last few years, I've been teaching video editing, video marketing, YouTube marketing, and I've always been on the lookout for a video editor that was either very inexpensive or free, but had the tools necessary to do what we were teaching. And most of the time, that was basically just compositing a graphic over video, which even on iMovie can be kind of a pain in the neck, and on Windows Movie Maker, you can't even do it. So I came across Shotcut. A friend of mine, actually, he'd been doing the same thing, just searching and searching and searching, and we had checked out a few different softwares, and all of a sudden he says, hey, look what I just found here. And I opened that thing up and absolutely fell in love with what you were doing. And so I've been dying to get you on the horn and be able to talk to you a little bit about what you're doing, why you're doing this huge project, because it is a huge project. You've been doing it for what, 10 years now?
Yeah, starting with the engine a little over 10 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
13, yeah.
Jeepers. So let's
and
talk.
a video editor before that as well, to wet my whistle, so to speak.
Oh, nice. See, now, I didn't know that part, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. First of all, we all know who the big players are in this realm. You've got Adobe with Premiere, you've got Apple with Final Cut, you've got Avid, you've got Sony with Vegas, almost near that same level. What made you decide, hey, I'm going to create a video editor, but I'm not going to go for the low end. I'm going to go for the high end here, because you really do have a tool that is very high end compared to the other tools out there. What made you do that?
That's interesting. I think it's a lot about personal challenge, just wanting to push myself, and also to try to tap into the engine that has been in development for so long, and all of its capabilities, as well as there were some new contributions to that engine when it gets to the integration of things like OpenGL-based image processing and HTML5 video effects. So I wanted to be able to exercise those and ensure that they worked cross-platform as well.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a lot about just the personal challenge and wanting to create something that I'm proud of.
Well, and you should be very proud of it because I'm very proud of it.
Well, I'm glad it works for you. It doesn't work for everyone.
Well, and that's of course, anytime you create software, that's going to be the case. I think the biggest thing I hear from people is, "Hey, I can't get it to run on Windows." Well, you're running a 32-bit. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's no longer, step
Yeah,
into
we
the year 2015, guys.
had, yeah, I had to drop the 32-bit. That was a little unfortunate, but um, when we did this major upgrade over the summer for the GUI toolkit that we were using, uh, we wanted to get some additional compatibility by providing this DirectX back-end capability. And but the 32-bit builds were not working after that upgrade. But also there were some other issues with the 32-bit builds in that they're basically on Windows that process when you're running it is limited to 2 gigabytes of RAM. By default, you have to do some real tweaking to get it to use more on your system, and then it only goes up to like 3 gigs of RAM. And for most people nowadays, with HD editing, they're hitting that upper limit, and the tool does not handle it gracefully when it runs out of memory. So it was like, well, we just gotta bite the bullet. It was a compatibility upgrade that took away 32-bit compatibility.
Well, hey, you know what? We all got to move into the future. Everyone thought
Yeah.
Apple was crazy to remove disk drives, and look what happened. So
That's true. Yeah. And the newer versions of OS X, 10 are 30 or 64-bit only. So
right. So let me ask you this: this is released as what we know as open source, correct?
yes.
So, because this confuses a lot of people, including me, I actually, when I first found this program and got excited about it, I started asking a lot of people about open source and how that works, and I was reading our documents. What does open source actually mean? And I know one word that gets thrown out there quite often is the word free software, and most people think of that as free as in no money, but in reality,
Right.
they kind of mean free as in not held down by something. So can you explain a little bit about that and why you chose to be open source?
Well, yeah, I don't consider myself necessarily an expert on this subject, but the basic tenet of it is in the spirit of it is that the source code for the software is available for other people to use to either try to build it themselves or to make derivatives or to reuse the code. But there's different kinds of licenses, and there's free software is mostly a little bit coupled with a concept called copyleft.
Mhm.
Which are you familiar with Creative Commons content licensing or anything like that?
Yeah. So as far as like YouTube goes and whatnot, yeah.
Yeah. So there's this concept of share alike, where it's like, okay, well, if you want to use this code in some way to make a derivative or include it in yours or whatever, then you need to also make that product open source as well.
Yes, and I think WordPress is a great example of that, especially in the fact that that many people don't understand that licensing when they start to create things for WordPress, and we see a lot of issues where, hey, you can't just grab my stuff. Well, yeah, we actually can.
Yeah, yeah. Now, a lot of things that are open source do allow like proprietary add-ons
Sure.
to be compliant with the licenses. Usually, you can't make basically a core that's open source that's dependent upon a proprietary add-on.
Right.
But in any case, as for why I chose to go that route, it really goes back like 15 years ago when, or even a little bit more than that, I started exploring Linux and wondering about it. And and got involved. I was like, at that time, I was a web developer, doing a lot of web app development, and I was getting a little burnt out on that, and I wanted to get back to some multimedia roots, and Linux was up and coming, and so I was like, let's check out what the state of multimedia is like on Linux, and I got started basically with FireWire and wanting to capture video and play it, capture the video off the camera tape,
Yep.
then to play it back. And so that basically got me involved in the process of working in open source communities and with open source software and
Nice.
projects. So,
and I know. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say yes. Probably the first biggest project that got involved with was DB Grab and the FireWire kernel subsystem.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Now, I know that, and you'll excuse me, I only know things on a very novice level when it comes to coding and whatnot, but I know that Shotcut is based off of a platform called MLT, which I think people pronounce as Melt.
That's right. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what that means as far as like what Melt is and how it relates to that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We got started on that in, I guess, late 2003. The first release was in 2004. There was myself and this other guy were the kind of co-creators on the technical side, as well as the corporate sponsor of the project. It was a paid project. He was sort of the driver of requirements and so forth, and money. But anyways, so there's basically three of us, and my co-creator, he was the lead on it, and it was to make what's called a video playout server for broadcasts. So the customer was an Indian satellite TV broadcaster.
Oh, nice.
And this type of system is basically like an industrial grade media player driven by a playlist for television, linear play out, so to speak. But they wanted some ability to do some things in real time processing, as like a logo overlay and maybe some levels changes on clips. And so the lead on the project, my co-creator, he really went into this whole framework approach that was flexible and expressive and modular and so forth. So that was the genesis of it. And it was basically what we call a multimedia framework. It was born out of that project.
Nice.
And at that time, I had, like I said, already been working on this other video editor. In fact, that's how it was a DV FireWire video editor for Linux. And that's how this corporate sponsor discovered us working on this and hired us to do this project. So, but that project didn't really have a foundation to work with different kinds of formats and to work in a truly non-destructive editing capability where you can go back in easily and change a parameter of something
Right.
of your edit. So I just sort of took that to its natural end, where that product could go, I felt. And there was this other video editor, meanwhile, another Linux-based video editor that had adopted Melt for its foundation, for its engine.
Yes, and I believe I have played with that one. I believe it's discontinued now, correct?
Well, that one was called Kdenlive.
Yeah.
You might be thinking of OpenShot, maybe.
I've actually looked at both of those,
Oh.
and I know OpenShot seems to have died as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's there is an entirely new version, but they're choosing to do like a lot of development before releasing. It appears. So, I mean, there's this code available, and you can try to build it yourself right now. But I don't want to talk too much about that. It's diverged, right? So, Kdenlive, yeah, it had adopted the engine, and this first video editor I was working on was called Kino, Kino. That had kind of reached its natural end of life, and I decided to go back to working on MLT to support this other video editor and to work with them. So, and I did some contribution work to Kdenlive,
Nice.
including porting it to work on OS 10 in the later 2000s.
Nice.
And that is what took me kind of into the cross-platform domain. So I was in the early 2000s primarily a Linux desktop user. And then later, through my day job, through work, OS 10 and Windows as well. In the household, the kids decided they wanted to run Windows for some special 3D software and games and stuff like that. And so life, household, work all became multi-platform.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where Shotcut was born out of. Some of the frustration of porting Kdenlive to OS 10 and wanting to do something that was cross-platform, because that's the way me and my family are now.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about Shotcut itself now, because as I tell people, and I believe I could be wrong here, but I believe I've probably sent you over 1,000 users at this point in time over the last couple of months.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Well, according to the
stats, like web stats and.
Yeah, just seeing the links and whatnot, it looks like it's over 1,000 now. I don't know if everybody downloaded it, but certainly
Right.
quite a few must have. But the thing that excited me about it was the cross-platform nature of it, which is exactly what drew me to it, because we want to be able to serve everybody. And the interesting thing about it was, you didn't go after the low end. You didn't try to make a very basic video editor with, very basic tools. You really went after the high end,
That's
nature
because
of video.
Kdenlive set the bar pretty high.
Nice.
That older Linux based video editor. And it was going through some interesting changes with the project, as well as at about the time that Shotcut got started, or shortly thereafter. And I needed to integrate some of these new technologies and prove to myself that they were working. These ones that I mentioned before about the OpenGL based image processing and HTML5 based. So I needed to integrate those and make sure that they were working in a cross-platform manner, and that that it could come together in a good way. Now, what do I mean when I say need to? Well, as a matter of personal challenge, I guess, and reacting to a calling or something. I just wanted to make sure that those were working solid and integrated into the engine melts in a certain way that made sense and could be used cross-platform. Maybe it could open up some opportunities for work, for income or whatever. But then the work on Shotcut kind of just became self-serving as a craft.
Nice. Well, and it really is a beautiful platform. And I want to talk a little bit. You've mentioned this a couple times, and I think it's important to hit on here. Obviously, as I mentioned, this is more of a high-end editor. So you've got your 4K video, your 3-point editing, and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you have in here that actually, well, and there's a few things I think that fall into this category, but there's one thing that trumps almost any other video editor, including the Final Cuts and Adobe Premieres of the world, and that's the HTML5 stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I don't even think people that have Shotcut understand the power of this and what you can really do with it.
Okay. Well, let me give you the backstory on that. There's this guy named Andrew, I guess, Wasson, I'm not sure, but he was working on kind of web server side dynamic video creation, and within some kind of a small company or startup that he was a founder or a co-founder of, and it got acquired by Hewlett Packard. They wanted to make a video extension for Snapfish. And so he developed this technology, is what we call web VFX. All, one word. And it's really kind of a marriage of Qt technologies, Qt, and Melt technologies, Melt. So it was basically Qt. The libraries and so forth has some interesting capabilities in the area of image processing, but also it lets you basically embed a web view into your app. Okay, except that web view can be retrieved as images in code into the buffers, so to speak. And there's a way to programmatically put images, like if you wanted to create embed an image into your web page, you might specify a path to a web server to get that image.
Right.
But with the way that this web technology is integrated with Qt, is you can specify a custom, say, protocol instead of HTTP, and that makes basically a hook into your code, and then you can provide a custom way to put an image into the web page. So he chose to take that capability and integrate it into a Melt plugin, so to speak, so that the video could come from Melt video frames going into the web page as images, and then he could grab the kind of like snapshots of the web pages as an image and convert those back into Melt video frames.
Yeah, very cool stuff, and we've seen some animations done with that, and I don't, like I said, I don't think people understand the power of that and kind of the cool things you can do with it. But there's
we're
lot
gradually showing it.
and I think that's only gonna even without any extra work on your part, that's only gonna grow. Correct? I mean, that's gonna get better and better on its own, if I understand it properly.
Well, especially, yes, if there's more and greater visual HTML5 animation tools. But there's kind of two ways to do HTML5 animation. And one is driven by CSS, cascading style sheets, and the other one is driven by JavaScript.
Right.
And this really only works well with the JavaScript approach.
And that's kind of the more fun stuff anyway, isn't it?
Sorry?
So that's kind of the more fun stuff anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. It's but in any case, we need to be able to control the timing. Otherwise, you don't want an animation kind of running at its own whim and speed and then making snapshots of that periodically. You want to be able to go to the animation and say, for this point in time, what does the image look like? You see, you need to be able to seek around, scrub on that animation. As well as when you're rendering out, you might be either going faster than real time or slower than real time. So, but the problem is that a lot of the tools that do JavaScript-based output do not make it easy to, like Adobe's animation program. I think it's called maybe Edge or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the way it outputs the animation doesn't really make it easy to access the what do you want to call it? The playback transport control for that animation. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so, and in as much as my limited knowledge can pick up on that.
Well, just like, in your video editor, you can have transport control and pause and play and rewind and fast forward, jump the frames and so forth. Some of the way these animation tools output do not make it easy for you to make a script on the page the way you put it into the page that you can actually control the playback. So that makes for poor integration into the tool. And so, have you seen the WYSIWYG HTML editor that's in Shotcut?
Yes, I have. I've played with it a little bit. There was some sort of an animation with a helicopter, I think, that I played around with.
Oh, okay. So that could grow to support animation of within the HTML5 page. But then even before that coming is the ability to animate titles created with HTML5 or compositions, images created with HTML5. You'll be able to pretty soon animate the way those appear across the video, like maybe scrolling or zooming and fading in and out, stuff like that.
Well, that's cool. And we're on the horn here with Dan Dennedy. What do you like to be called? The coder, the programmer? What's the best reference?
Lead developer.
Lead developer of Shotcut Video Editor here on.
I guess I should mention there's a couple others helping with the project. There's Harold in Norway, and he's the most recent, and Brian, who lives in the United States here as well. And they're, well, I guess you could call them contributing developers.
Nice.
Yeah. So they contribute off and on, but substantially enough to consider them definitely a part of the project.
Nice.
Project team, yeah.
Now, Steve, you've been kind of quiet back there. Do you have any questions, or are you just sitting there soaking this in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of understanding it. I'm sort of a geek, although kind of a dumb geek, I guess. But so okay, Dan, you mentioned you had a backer on it. Did I understand that correctly? Somebody that wanted to see this get developed?
Not for Shotcut itself.
Oh,
but
okay.
For for the engine melt. Yes.
Okay, for the engine. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
And it really was not what they were interested in funding. They were just interested in this solution for television broadcast playout.
I get it. Okay.
But there's a lot of solutions for that. But this guy particularly wanted an open source solution.
I see.
And there's some other broadcasters who use it, but it's not really taken off. It's not like the way Apache has taken off the web server.
Right. Well, let me ask then, how with Shotcut, because I know Ray's been real high on it here. How do you monetize it, and maybe just something open source in general? How is that monetized?
So I'm lightly monetizing, only really at this point to make it self-sufficient as a project. So overheads for the server costs. So there's not just web serving hosting, but these nightly build servers that have cost, domain name, stuff like that. So there's advertising on the website and in the YouTube videos, as well as a donation PayPal donation solicitation on the downloads page. And it is at this point a little bit more than paying for itself.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Oh, that's
not
exciting.
a whole lot, but I do have maybe some aspirations or ideas about wanting to try to, hey, maybe this, if I'm making enough money on this, then I could work on it full time, and it will progress even faster, or be even better. Right?
There you go.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. And that would be a fantastic thing. Now, going back to one of the reasons that I love this program, as I've mentioned about 1,000 times now, is kind of the high end nature of this. You've got a new edition that came out last month, which quite frankly was the one thing that put this over to the edge where I went crazy telling everybody about it. And that was your Chroma Keying filters.
Yes.
Now, tell me a little bit about that. How difficult was that? Because I have to say, your Chroma Key filters are actually really, really good.
Really? Oh, that's good to hear. I don't have a lot of experience with Chroma Keying, but here's the dirty little secret on that. That was very easy because I didn't actually implement the guts of the filters.
Right.
Okay. So the engine is built upon the shoulders of many giants, I guess you could say. It's built on top of a lot of other open source technologies. And if you go to one of these web pages on the website, I think it's like called credits or something like that. Let me see here. Yeah, on the left-hand side, you can see a credits link. And it lists all these other open source projects that it's taken advantage of. So if you go into the melt documentation, you can see that there's actually a lot of additional things that could be exposed. But I didn't want to just sort of make everything available in this generic fashion, so to speak. And a lot of times there's redundant ways or effects. Okay. So I wanted to be able to have sort of a customized and translatable UI for the filter control panels, and to be kind of pick and choose certain filters that were kind of like maybe the best or working the best cross-platform or for whatever reasons. So I've been kind of curating them and integrating them into the Shotcut UI.
Nice.
Kind of slowly. That's actually an area where people can contribute that's fairly easily. In fact, over the summer, I gave my 2 teenage daughters summer projects to make some filter UIs. So there's 2 parts to the filter. There's the logical processing part of it, and then there's the UI part of it. So we chose some of the pick and chose, from the list of the catalog of all the filters and effects, certain ones that we wanted to work on, and then I helped them, guided them to make the UIs for it.
See, that's really, really interesting.
So I haven't been too aggressive about that particular area. I mean, it's kind of slowly, gradually been growing, the number of filters and stuff, because there's a lot of aspects to the product and the project that I'm still feel like I'm erecting what I call tent poles.
Right.
And one of those tent poles is that's next is keyframes.
Yes, thank you.
So the capabilities are already there in the engine, and for a lot of the effects and their parameters, there's
see, that to me is very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be. Yeah, and so there's still all these little other facets of it that need a lot of refinement. You know, there's still filters and effects that could need to be brought to the table. There's still certainly a lot more polish needed in the timeline UI and so forth.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with any open source project that's not a commercially funded deal. It's always going to be a work in progress in some way, shape, or form. And of
Yeah.
course, the fact that you're not being charged $1,000 for it, makes that an okay thing, at least in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because my relation to this, and the way I always look at it is I compare all of it to the way that I see WordPress. So when you talk about people making filters and things like that, is there ever a time where it would be similar to the way that WordPress works, where WordPress is this free monster in the center, but then Johnny Smith can make a plugin for WordPress? Is that kind of the way this would go? Is, gee, I want to make a plugin for, or a filter for Shotcut, and then they can go out and do that and have it added to the program? Or is that something that you have to add from your end to the project as a whole?
It depends upon what you want to do, but if it's just something like a filter, let's say, that's fairly easy because, well, first of all, the engine allows for plugins. That makes it fairly easy to add, but those are just the logical bottom half of that plugin, so to speak. And then the tool Shotcut GUI needs to allow some way to for them to be exposed and
Right.
for the UI to be written. Right now, we're not supporting these standards like say VST for audio and OpenFX for video or anything like that. And partly the reason for that is because it's very challenging to do, especially their UI parts to do in a cohesive manner and get it working cross-platform, especially. That's the big one. But it could grow to include those as well.
So
But
in other words,
I just want to make it work with the melt capabilities that are there. This is really a lot about trying to peel back the layer, so to speak, or exposing more and more of melt through this tool.
nice.
So if you go into your install directory, let's say on Windows or whatever, you go to Program Files, Shotcut, Share, Shotcut, QML, you can see these bits of UI and all the filters. So if you go into Filters folder, that's dynamic. If you add a new folder and add the appropriate QML files, is what they're called, which is a language, so to speak, then it'll automatically become available in the UI.
So very similar to the way that After Effects works as far as filters go, then.
I don't know exactly. I don't get a chance to use many other tools very much. So I kind of doubt it, because those, I think, tend to provide their own custom UIs using just whatever platform they're using, Windows or OS X in the technology.
Yeah, that is true, but it is a very, you just drop a folder into an area and suddenly it's available.
Yeah, in that way,
in that regard.
Yeah, yes, in that regard, it is like that. But that only works because we've opened up this channel of extensibility within the tool for filters. Right now, it does not work that way for transitions.
Right.
For the UI kind of panels itself, like you can't just say, I want to add a a new custom panel that's like a view into my asset management system.
Right.
So that you cannot do. There's something like the generators, which is available in File, Open Other. That is an area that could be made extensible in a similar manner to that. But that the extensibility for filters was initially added because I knew there could be a lot of them, and I wanted to make it an easier way for me to make them.
See, that to me is fantastic because I could really see people, smart programmers going, oh, you know what? I love this, but I want to have, a very special posterization filter or pixelation filter or something like that, and be able to create that and drop it in there and, give it to their buddies and, do some really cool stuff. So that to me is really an exciting part of all this, if that can really be, exploited at some point in time.
Yeah. I think that will grow a little bit in the future as more people become that are tech savvy or developers are more interested in contributing to it. We're not seeing a whole lot of that right now.
Well, and I think it's just it's a matter of exposure, and I think that all it probably takes is the one smart guy who says, "Hey, this is a really cool program," and contacts a bunch of coders and says, "Hey, make me some filters,"
Yeah.
And I'm sure that eventually will come about. But let me ask you this, because what we've talked a lot about how this is such a great video editing tool, but the way I see this is more than a video editing tool, because you've got a full, you said this was originally based off of a playlist feature, and you have a full playlist feature in here, as well as a very, very big import export system in there, which, as far as I can tell, is far beyond what you get with any of the other high-end professional video editors out there. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because the import output is just massive in here.
Well, that's the shoulders of the giant ffmpeg.
Yes.
And this is a tool that's using the API of ffmpeg as opposed to, and when I say API, I'm not talking about on the coding level library interface as opposed to a command line interface. So there's a lot of ffmpeg front ends out there,
right?
For different platforms, some cross-platform, but most of them, and a lot of them, you have to bring your own copy of ffmpeg.exe or x264 and supply it to the tool. But there's only a certain amount of stuff you can do, like through the command line interface that way. So from the very beginning, it's been using the ffmpeg API and integrated it. Kind of, you can think of it at the frame level, so to speak. Okay. In Melt, we have a frame that you could think of it as a video frame, but for every video frame, or every Melt frame has both the video image as well as the audio for the duration of that frame associated with it. And so there was additional work, certainly in the UI, on the export panel, or the encode panel, as we call it, to make these various presets, to make the parameters available in a sensible manner so that it's not overload, but you could still access a fair amount of the features. And then if you really want to go custom, you can use the other tab and understand the textual incantation to make it work, right? So yeah, it's largely thank you to ffmpeg developers
Right.
and libav developers as well.
You know, and one cool thing that I brought up with people recently, which it actually came from a question that I was asked, which is, hey, can I export animated GIFs? And I said, you know what? I have no idea. Well, you definitely can, and as I as I posted back to him, yes, apparently you can do this. This is now the world's most advanced GIF animation tool in.
So that worked for you, did it?
Oh yes, it worked very well for me.
Interesting, because the last time I had to create an animated GIF, I had to resort to using the ffmpeg command line because to get, I guess, maybe better color quality
Right.
of the output, there's a certain two-pass way that needs to be done.
And that may be the case. There may be slightly better versions, but I was extremely impressed with what came out of there. I think the only issue I ran into with it was you had to play with it a little bit, and it tried to name it as like I think it tried to name it as an MPEG-4 or something, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. And all I did was just change it to .gif, and it worked perfectly. So very, very well done stuff.
Oh, cool.
So as I said, the world's most powerful GIF animation tool.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with that there. And of course, you know, on top of that, you've got the transitions. And recently I showed people how to add more of the grayscale images to create extra transitions and all of that kind of fun stuff. So
that's an area of extensibility or
and
add-on.
yeah, and that's an easy way to do it. You know, I showed them, hey, you can take somebody's logo and turn it into that. But let me ask you this, because you know, obviously there's endless possibilities when you're talking about you know, using the grayscale what's the word I'm looking for, organic-y looking transitions like that. But what about getting into digital transitions and things like that, such as fly-offs and spin-ins and barn door opens and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, let me see if this website is up. Yes, okay. Is it loading is the question completely. Okay. So the website that, yeah, it's getting there. It's just slow right now. GLSL.io. Okay. And it is basically WebGL, and herein comes again the HTML5 integration capabilities. But it's WebGL based transitions collection.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Are you seeing some of them? Yeah.
Oh yes.
And recently I contributed to the WebVFX project, which, by the way, that the guy who originated that and while he was working at HP has since kind of abandoned the project. He doesn't work on the WebVFX anymore. We kind of took it in under the Melt umbrella.
Oh, cool.
Melt project umbrella and are the maintainers of that. So I did some consulting for a company that wanted to use these, and I just made an example within WebVFX about how to integrate these, you know, at the coding level. It's just fairly easy. But each of these can have a custom UI, so to speak. You know, they all some of them, I should say, have some parameters that are specific to their effect. And so we have to do some work on the transitions UI and Shotcut to make this area more extensible in order to integrate them. But yeah, this is this is where that's coming in, so to speak.
Nice. So when will we start to see some of that integrated into there, or is that something that's possible now?
Well, it's only possible with sort of some custom authoring.
So
not
in other
through
words, it's not possible by me.
right. And what I mean by custom authoring is when you save your project, it's saved to XML, what we call melt XML, and
Yeah.
you can do additional things in that if you understand that syntax, that language, so to speak. Then you can tap into these other filters and transitions that are documented on the Melt website, as well as do things like keyframing of, parameters and stuff like that.
Wow.
And then Shotcut can open that up and play it, but it cannot edit all that, right? You can't edit something it doesn't know about. It's not as bare bones as, say, a text editor.
Gotcha.
So if you want to edit it, at this more raw layer, then you can with a text editor, and then use Shotcut to preview it. So that was one of the original goals, really, of Shotcut, was really just to be a cross-platform player for Melt XML.
Right.
And then adding things like playlist, and then adding, encoding, exporting, then adding device input support, and then, just keeps growing and growing, right?
That's very, very cool stuff.
So when on this, I don't know, like I'm thinking in the Q2 timeframe.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. And like I said, I mean, I've been blown away by the project. I've been blown away by the way it works and how well it works. And of course, mostly blown away by the green screening capability, which is the one thing I was dying for. So, and you said a while ago, and I think it was probably back in August, and it said, probably by the end of the year. And I'd been waiting for the end of the year to roll around. And sure enough, there it was. So I was very excited by that. So that's fantastic, because we do, I'm an editor. I've got Premiere, I've got Final Cut Pro, so I can certainly do green screen without an issue. But I know that a lot of the people that I teach, they don't have those tools. And so to have a tool that can do compositing, that can do green screen, that can do import, export, it changes the entire world, just like WordPress did or OpenOffice did. This is the video version of that, and I'm really, really excited about it. And I'm glad you came on with us today. I think people love this. So I think people will be excited.
Yeah.
So one last question for you: where do you see this project in about 5 years from now?
Oh man, I can't think that way. I'm just sort of in it for the moment and maybe like a few months ahead. But I guess working on it full time, you could say.
Nice.
And making an income to be able to work on it full time.
Well, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. All right.
Yeah,
well, as I said, this is our guest, Dan Dennedy. He is the lead developer of a beautiful video editing program called Shotcut, which we have been promoting like mad over the last couple of months. And it's a very exciting project, and really something that everybody needs to at least get in there and try out. Green screening, 3-point editing. You probably don't even know what some of this stuff means, but trust me when I tell you, it is an editor, as far as I'm concerned, that is at the level of an Adobe Premiere or a Final Cut Pro, much more so than an iMovie or a Windows Movie Maker. So, Dan, beautiful job. And for those of you who like eye candy, I mean, you've got things like old film effects in there and projectors and, all sorts of cool stuff like that. So you can do a lot of really fun filtering with this and transitions and editing, and just a brilliant job. So thank you for coming on today. I appreciate that. And
You're
any last
welcome.
things?
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. Any last things you wanna say before we head out of here?
No, I think I covered it.
Beautiful.
Appreciate you inviting me, and
Poor Steve.
nice
I
to
kind of
talk
I kind
about it
of shut him down because
No, that's
you know
okay.
I'm such a
sometime.
I was so excited about this. I kind of took over the whole show,
Great.
but
Yeah, it's your
no,
show. Shotcut.org, Dennedy.org, and there's also a wiki article out there with a list of features.
there is. I'm actually on that page as we speak. So it's at wikipedia.org/wiki/shotcut.
And I'll post that up in the show notes. So, and it's the radio show about video marketing madness with Ray the Video Guy, and I'm Steve Sleeper. Today's show made possible
By the wonderful Aweber software for email marketing. Want to start doing your email lists and doing all sorts of great newsletters and marketing and everything else? Well, check out Aweber. You can head on over to raythevideoguy.com/Aweber and start for as little as $1 for your first month. So check it out.
Yeah, what could be better? Got a question for Ray? Go to raythevideoguy.com/ask, ASK. Leave your question, and if he answers it here on the show, you'll win all kinds of great video marketing stuff. Facebook page, Video Marketing Madness. Twitter, Video MKT Madness. We announce the new shows, and we post plenty of useful tips for your video marketing business. So, let's wrap her up with the jingle.
All right, let's do it.
He's Ray the Video Guy, yeah, Ray the Video Guy. His skill is where it's at, even if he's a little fat. He's filled with video expertise and has so much knowledge that you need. His YouTube ninja tricks can make your marketing so sick. He's Ray the Video Guy, yeah, Ray the Video Guy.